You know these blocks. You've hit them countless times. You know these coins. You've made a fortune collecting them. So what if I told you we could actually bring it all to life? Hey guys, welcome back to Project Kwokade. I'm super excited to share my latest project with you guys, as you can see right here. In this video, I'll take you through the journey of how this idea came to fruition, and show you step by step how to make these, so you can easily build them for your own room. No soldering required. All my 3D models will be available to download for free, and I have a lot to offer this time, so stick around until the end and make sure you subscribe for more builds like this. Alright, let's go! I went to Super Nintendo World at Universal Studios Hollywood, looking for inspiration for my next project. I was surrounded by overwhelmingly insane props all over the park. But one thing caught my attention almost immediately: these spinning coins. I don't know why, but something so simple is weirdly mesmerizing. They're instantly recognizable, and they've been a staple in Super Mario games forever. So it was settled. I had to make the spinning coins. But if I'm going to do that, I need something underneath to hide the mechanics. So I decided on blocks. That's the only correct decision. Specifically this combo of brick, question block, brick. It's a super common setup that you see in almost every first level in Super Mario games. They even set it up in the background of this really awkward photo I took with Mario and Luigi. Don't even get me started with the Peach photo. But Toad was cool. Anyway, let's take a warp pipe back to the Kwokade and start designing. Alright, here's the plan. We're going to make a block, and the coin's going to sit right on top. Inside the block, a tiny N20 DC motor spins the coin, hidden away and powered by a power adapter. But one coin block isn't enough, so let's multiply that by 3. I also want the question block to light up, just like the one in Super Nintendo World, which means I'll be sneaking an LED inside, plus a switch to turn the whole thing on and off. Since this belongs on the wall, I'll design a mount so it hangs cleanly. And if I ever want blocks without coins spinning on top, I'll design a version that doubles as storage, with a lid and everything. Alright, let's get to modeling. The blocks themselves were actually super easy to model, but the real challenge was making them print friendly and easy to assemble for you guys. If you're thinking about building these yourselves, I designed a bunch of different blocks, so you can have fun creating your own combinations, including the brick block, the question block, the empty block that you get when you hit a question block, the note block, and the POW block. Each block comes with multiple variants. Let's call them left, right, middle, and solo, where the left blocks have pegs on the right side, the right blocks have holes on the left for the pegs, the middle blocks have both, and the solo blocks have neither. On top of that, I also made versions of the blocks without a spinning coin, which are storage blocks with a magnetic lid. And those come in the same left, right, middle, and solo variants as well, which means there are 8 variants for each of the 5 block types, 40 different blocks total. If you end up making this, I'm really excited to see what combinations you come up with. I also modeled 2 variants of the tops, one with a hole for the switch and one without. With that done, everything's modeled, so let's get our hands dirty. In order to minimize supports, I separated the coin blocks into 2 pieces. This will save you a ton of filament, and you can thank me with a subscribe if you haven't already. First up, let's print the middle question block. If you plan on putting an LED inside, use white filament so the light shines through the thin walls on the question mark. If your printer has AMS, you can print in yellow and white, but I'll stick with just white since multicolor printing eats up a lot of filament. I'll just paint it yellow later. And if you're skipping paint, print with high infill so light doesn't leak through the yellow parts. This came out great. Next, let's print the top piece. With that done, we can set them aside and print the bricks. These will need a little support, unlike the question block. We're printing 2 bricks, one for the left and one for the right. And 2 tops, one with a hole for the switch and one without. Alright, all 3 blocks are printed. Let's prep them for the next steps. Here's the left brick. It turned out pretty good. And the top part fits perfectly. You'll notice there are 2 holes on top. One for the rocker switch and one for the motor that'll be sticking out. Next up is the middle question block. Like I mentioned earlier, the middle pieces have pegs on the right side and holes on the left, so they can connect to other blocks. Let's see if everything fits. Perfect. After that, we have the right brick piece, which has holes on the left side. And once again, perfect fit. Now before I start gluing everything together, I'm going to do a few prep steps. I'm going to start by painting the insides of the question block black, which helps prevent light bleed and diffuses it a bit. We just have to make sure to avoid painting over the question mark itself. And I'll do the same thing for the top piece. Just to show you why I bothered doing this, here's a top piece that doesn't have any black paint on the inside. You can clearly see all the info patterns showing through the print. Here's the top that I painted black. Huge difference. Much cleaner and way less transparent. Of course, this doesn't matter if you're printing it with 100% infill. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Okay, now it's time to glue the top pieces onto the blocks. I'm using some super strong super glue here because we definitely don't want this thing popping off. Let's give it a second to set while I do the other brick block. Once that's done, I'm going to reinforce the connection from the inside using some E6000, just to really lock everything in and make sure it stays solid. Sweet! Now I'll do the exact same thing with the question block. Okay, the brick blocks are ready for the next step. I have some brown paint here, so I'm going to paint the entire thing with this. Now I know what you're thinking. Yo, Kwok, it's already brown. You literally printed it in brown. Are you dumb? My response to that is yes, but you'll see for yourself why I'm doing this in a bit. Of course, this step is completely optional. While that dries, I'm going to paint the question block yellow. Whatever you do, do not get paint on the question mark. That thing is sacred. If you get paint on it, clean it off immediately. This takes a few coats, so be patient. For the question block, I'm also going to darken these 4 corner holes slightly. It's a small detail, but it makes the blocks feel way more like the games. Next, I'm going to add black paint into the cracks of the brick blocks to bring out the details. Hey, it's me from the future. Spoiler alert, you might want to ignore this step because it'll end up being redundant, and you'll find out why in a few minutes. Alright, continue the video. This part is probably going to take forever, so I'm going to do this off camera. Okay, nice, it's done. Only took 2 hours. Now we can finally assemble the blocks. I'm going to glue the sides and connect them, holding everything in place for a few seconds so it can set. Then I'll go in from the back with some E6000 to really reinforce it. Make sure these blocks are solid. Don't be shy with the glue. This thing is going on a wall. Okay, here's the final result. It's looking real good. Next, I'm taking this to the garage because things are about to get stinky. This next step is completely optional, but I'm going to coat the entire thing in UV resin. The reason for this is simple. I want a clean, glossy finish. The resin helps smooth out paint imperfections, hides any leftover layer lines from the 3D print, and really makes the colors pop. We go all out here on Project Kwokade. No shortcuts. We'll want to do this one side at a time because resin loves to drip everywhere. I'll spread it evenly across the surface, making sure everything's covered, while carefully avoiding the holes. Once that's done, hit it with a UV light to lock it in. And there we go, hard as a rock. There are a few tiny air bubbles, but honestly, I can live with that. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other 4 sides off camera, so I'll see you later. Okay, we're back. All the sides are coated in resin. But I'm not super happy with how this turned out. As you can see, a bunch of big air bubbles formed inside the cracks, which is definitely not what we want. That's because UV resin shrinks and condenses slightly as it cures, so you really want to apply it in thin layers. In my case, the resin flowed into the cracks, built up too thick, and trapped there, hence the bubbles. So instead of pretending this didn't happen, here's the fix. I'm going to paint over the cracks with black paint again, then seal everything in a much thinner coat of resin. Is it fixable? Yes. Is this annoying? Also yes. So, I'm being smart this time and using tape to keep the edges straight. I don't know why I didn't do this before, but hey, we live and we learn. That's why I'm here. To make all the mistakes so you guys don't have to. Look at those straight edges. I'll go ahead and do the rest. I mean, look at that. That's just atrocious. Be gone, pesky air bubbles. Alright, the cracks are painted over, and it already looks way cleaner than before. I originally planned on sealing everything with another thin layer of resin, but honestly, I kinda love the matte finish. It makes the brown bricks really pop and feel more like actual Mario blocks. So I'm leaving it like this, which means we're finally done with the blocks, and it's time to move on to the electronics and wiring. Okay, let's get started with the electronics. This part might sound intimidating, but I promise it's actually really simple once you break it down. It's a perfect beginner project if you've never touched electronics before. I'll walk through everything step by step. Let's talk about the materials we'll need. Starting with the N20 DC motors. I'm using 3 of them here. These motors come in a bunch of different RPMs, which is just speed of rotation. So I jumped into New Super Mario Bros. 2 and counted how many full rotations a coin makes in a minute. I got about 56, so anything in the 50 to 60 RPM range is pretty much perfect. The motors I'm using are rated for 6 volts, so we'll want a 6 volt power adapter to match. If you're running multiple motors, just make sure the adapter can supply enough current. I went with a 5 amp power supply so everything stays happy. As a general rule, match the voltage exactly, and always give yourself extra amps rather than pushing the power supply to its limit. Think of it like extra lives. It's better to have them than to not need them. And since I'm using a regulated 6 volt DC power supply and low powered gear motors, I don't need any extra filtering here. For lighting, I'm using a 6 volt LED strip inside the question block, along with 22 gauge wire and binder clips, 2 for each coin block. Optional supplies include soldering tools if you want to solder your connections. Otherwise, electrical tape works just fine. If you want to be able to turn the whole thing on and off, grab a rocker switch. Mine's rated for 20 amps and 125 volts, and make sure it fits a 0.9 inch hole. Alright, let's get started. First things first, wiring basics. I'm using 2 wire colors to keep things easy. Red for positive and black for negative. If your wires are different colors, that's totally fine. Just be consistent. Mixing these up is where confusion usually starts. I'm going to cut some wire and strip the ends to expose the metal inside. Make sure you leave yourself a little extra wire. It's way better to have too much than not enough. Now let's wire up the motors. I'll thread the wire through the 2 terminals on each motor. Electrically, the motors don't care which wire goes where, but the direction they spin does matter. If you swap the wires, the motor spins the opposite direction. Mario coins from the game spin counterclockwise when viewed from above, so I wired mine to match that. If yours spin the wrong way, don't panic. Just swap the wires. By the way, for the motors, I have 3 different wire lengths for each of them. They're all going to be connected inside this brick block, where the switch is going to go, so each motor has different wire lengths. With the motors done, let's move on to the LED strip. Cut the wire, strip the ends, and get it ready to connect. Now we're ready to tie everything together. I'm installing the rocker switch through this hole in the top. Even though this switch comes with a red and black wire, this switch only interrupts the positive line. So both of these wires are effectively positive. Don't let the colors throw you off. Next, I'm going to gather all the positive wires. In my case, there's 5 total. 3 motors, the LED strip, and the switch. I need to solder all of these together into a single connection. So I'll start with these 4, since the one in the rocker switch is hard to reach. Okay, now I'm going to include the switch. Alright, there we go. If you don't have a soldering iron, you can tightly twist the wires together and secure them with electrical tape or heat shrink tubing. Soldering is cleaner and stronger, but it's not required. We don't judge here at Project Kwokade. Now I'll do the same thing with the negative wires. This time there are only 4, since the switch doesn't connect to the negative side. But I'm going to cut 1 more black wire that will connect this to the power adapter. Once that's done, we're left with 1 red wire and 1 black wire. The red wire belonging to the switch. These go straight into this power adapter. Mine has screw terminals, which makes things super easy. Just loosen the screws, insert the wire, and tighten them back down. If your adapter doesn't have screw terminals, just make sure red goes into positive and black goes into negative. And double check everything before plugging it in. Quick safety notes before we power this on. This is a low voltage setup, so it's generally safe to work with, and heat shouldn't be an issue. Still, always unplug the power before making changes. Make sure all exposed connections are fully insulated, and avoid bare wires touching each other inside the block. Also, never exceed the voltage ratings of your components. And as a general rule, always give yourself extra current capacity. Alright, I'm not here to give you an electronics lecture. We're here to make things spin. So, moment of truth. Nice! It works. Now we can put the motors and the LED in place. For the motors, I designed these holders that we'll need. 1 for each block, so 3 in total. I'm going to thread the motors through the blocks and take my holder, which the motor should snap into. Then I'll thread the motor shaft through this hole on the top piece. This is where binder clips come in. We'll use them to clamp everything to the top so the motor stays locked in place and doesn't go anywhere. I'll do this for the other 2 as well. For the LED, you want it facing the question block and sitting pretty close to it. You might have to get a little creative here. I'm just gonna do this and slap some tape on it. It's ugly, but no one will know. Except for you guys. Let's add some strain relief, so the wires aren't pulling directly on the solder points or terminals. A zip tie or a dab of hot glue inside the block works great. After organizing the wires and cleaning things up a bit, this is the final result. And now, all that's left are the coins. The coins were also super easy to model. I printed them with the hole facing upward, so it didn't need any support for that. And this little piece here is an add-on for the motor shaft. That lets me rotate each coin, so they all face the same direction. Now, let's paint them gold. And by paint, I mean way too many coats of it. Alright, it's finally done. It took way longer than it should have, but it looks pretty decent enough. If you're listening, save yourself the headache and just grab some gold spray paint. I couldn't do that, because I'm currently snowed in and trapped in my house, like I'm on Cool Mountain. Let's put everything onto the blocks and power it on. We're finally done. Real quick, before we move on to mounting the blocks, I want to show you how to make the storage versions, the blocks without the spinning coins. I'll demonstrate using the POW block. Let's go ahead and print the block, along with the lid. You'll notice these circular holes on both pieces. Those are for the magnets. You'll need 12mm by 2mm magnets, and it takes 8 magnets per block. I'm not painting this block yet, because I want to get this video out to you guys ASAP. Okay, this part is very important, so listen up. When you glue the magnets in, the polarity has to be correct. That means north has to face south when the lid goes on. Before gluing anything, test fit the magnets. Do not mess this up. Someone watching this will mess up, and if you do, you are legally obligated to come back in this video and confess in the comments so we can all laugh at you together. Alright, magnets are in. The lid snaps on perfectly. And we've got a clean little storage block with a secure lid. Now let's jump back into the build. Let's print out the wall mount. I recommend printing this on its side for extra strength, since that's the direction the lid will be pulling. I added 2 screw holes so you can mount it directly into the surface. Now we're ready to hang this on the wall. I'm using a couple of command strips to hold everything in place while I drill the screws. One mount should be enough for these 3 blocks, but if you want extra security or you're running more blocks, definitely use 2 or more mounts. Hopefully I don't wake up my neighbors on the other side of this wall. The blocks should just slide right on down. Nice. Let's power it on and grab some cinematic shots with the Super Mario soundtrack. Cue the nostalgia. Now we have a piece of Nintendo history right here in the Kwokade. It looks so real I almost want to punch it. It's not quite as big as the blocks from Super Nintendo World. Those things are massive, so I don't know how I'd feel with one of those hanging in here. Before you run off and make one of these for yourselves, here's a few things that I learned along the way. First and foremost, these motors are loud. I originally wanted the coin spinning all day long, but you would go insane listening to what sounds like a constant power drill. This was my first time working with small gear motors, so I had no idea. If I did this again, I'd probably experiment with quieter motors or add some sound dampening. Still though, noisy or not, it's a super cool wall prop. Second lesson, resin is cool, but I'm not sure it's worth the pain. The air bubbles, the mess, and the extra curing time had me questioning my life choices more than once. It added a lot of build time. Also, I would have saved a ton of time using spray paint instead of acrylics. Next, it probably would have been smarter to use a single motor to power all the coins by adding gears, so they'd rotate at the exact same speed. The downside is that it would have made the assembly and design a little more complicated, and I really wanted this project to stay extremely beginner friendly. So yeah, trade-offs.
Lastly, and I can't stress this enough,
mount your blocks properly. At first, I didn't screw in my mount because it was 1 AM and my neighbors were most likely asleep. My blocks didn't even last an hour with command strips alone. Good thing my arcade cabinet caught it. Otherwise, I would have cancelled this video and deleted my channel. Again, use more than one mount and screw them on the wall. I promise it will be secure, or your money back. Just kidding, you won't get your money back, because these models will be available to download for free. Yes, free. I'm not here to take your money. I'm here to inspire you. So go ahead and make it. If you do, definitely show me and I'll give you a virtual pat on the back. Or if you can, improve it. I'll leave the download link in the description. All I ask is you don't sell my work in any shape or form. And of course, I've got to give a huge shout out to my 786 subscribers. You guys made this video possible. Seriously, a lot of you left some really nice comments on my last video, and I'm incredibly grateful. I read every single one with a smile on my face. Let me know what you think of this build in the comments. And what game series do you want to see me tackle next? I've got a whole list of projects lined up, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss what's coming. I might even make the piranha plants or a moving mushroom to go along with the setup in the future. And if you made it this far into the video, you deserve a star. Thanks so much for watching, have a quacktastic day, and I'll see you in the next project.